Alright, all aboard. Financial freedom awaits. MyTrade proudly presents the Navigator, the newest, easiest, and brightest fundamental tool from MyTrade's renowned research team. Be guided in your investing voyage. Get the best stock picks, sound long-term strategies, and valuable information about the companies that you're buying. Follow the light. The Navigator. Better your tomorrow.
Good afternoon, Winkers. There are currently 5 REITs listed in the exchange, and most have shown a very good run since IPO. Do our guests have what it takes to perform the same? Let's find out in today's episode of What Investors Need to Know. Hello, sana naman kayo... Hello. Hello, good afternoon, guys. Welcome back to another episode of Wink. How are you? Where are you watching us from? Alam nyo na yung drill. Put that in the comment section below so I can shout out your names. And also, naalala nyo ba yung unang inintroduce natin ng REITs? From the very first street, napanganga pa nga tayong mga investors at nangangapa kung inaalam kung bakit nga ba binibili to. For those who are new to our channel, this is My Trade PH, the online division of Abaco Securities Corporation that aims to educate its clients and subscribers to proper understanding of stock investing. Ngayon, alam na natin more or less kung ano yung proper treatment for REITs. And I'm glad that our Oo nga pala, going back to the cases, no, I am glad that the cases went down to 10,000 yesterday. And sana, I hope that tuloy-tuloy na yung pagbaba ng cases. Let me talk to our audience now. Let's see, where are you watching us from? Hi, Mariles. Go na go, Ilocos. Please share this event. If you are watching via Facebook, you can share this on your timeline. I'm pretty sure your friends and family members would like to know another investment avenue. Hi, cool Climate TV watching from Qatar. Ayan, worldwide na naman tayo. There's the one in Middle East. Punta naman tayo sa kay JP who's watching from Canada. Hi JP, I hope you're safe, you and your family. Please, if this is your first time, grant access to StreamYard so we can flash out your names like this. Hi Roda Padasas. Kung hey Fat Choy sa mga Chinese Filipino-Chinese friends natin na nanonood ngayon. Watching from Hong Kong. Alright. I wonder kung same ba yung lasa ng tikoy sa Hong Kong tsaka yung lasa ng tikoy dito. Hello, Jimbo Maralag. Yes, thank you so much for watching. We are now 125 and I know pretty much dadating yung mga watchers natin, mga suki nating nanonood later on. All right, so hindi ko na patatagalin. And I know that yun nga, kanina sinasabi ko about the cases. And of course, this pandemic has taught us different ways to earn, especially whose industries got hit by it. With all the progression we have in our economy, we can't help but talk about ways in keeping our Mother Earth healthy. That's why our guest company today is very interesting as are about to, they are about renewable energy. Hindi ko na patatagalan, and let's find out who they are.
Oliver Whitehan, President and CEO, Citicorp Power Group. Mr. Oliver Tan first joined Megawide in 2010 as Chief Finance Officer. He was involved in the successful IPO of Megawide in 2011 and has led the deals for various public partnership projects with the government, starting with the construction of schools with the Department of Education, Mactan Cebu International Airport Project, and Parañaque Integrated Terminal Transport Project. Beginning 2018, he focused on the expansion of Citicorp Group's business and has led various successful deals, such as acquisitions, joint venture agreements, and bilateral contracts over the years. Mr. Tan's vision has driven the very rapid growth of the Citicorp Group from 2016. He leads over 100 employees and applies his experience in corporate finance, strategy, and building infrastructure businesses. Mia Cortez, Chief Finance Officer. Mia Grace Paula S. Cortez is the Chief Finance Officer of CREIT. She is currently the Chief Finance Officer of CPI and has been the Group Controller for Megawide since 2015. She is both a Certified Public Accountant and a Certified Management Accountant. Joan Casico, Citicorp Group IR Head. Abigail Joan R. Casico is the Citicorp and Megawide Group IR Head. She has been the head of investor relations for Megawide Construction Corporation and Citicorp Power Incorporated since 2016. She has over 15 years of experience in the property sector across various capacities and segments before joining Megawide.
All right, so let me call the president. Hi, Sir Oliver. Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon.
We are all excited to hear about your presentation. Let me give you the floor.
Hi, so good afternoon to all the attendees in today's call. We are excited to share with you details and the framework of the first energy REIT in the Philippines, Citicorp Energy REIT or CREIT for short. Can you move the slide, please? Next slide. Next slide. One more. Okay. So the sponsors, collectively known as Citicorp, are renewable energy companies with an aggregate installed capacity of 163 megawatt today. The issuer, CREIT, will have an initial land portfolio of more than 1.6 million square meters with an appraised value of 10.9 billion pesos. These land parcels are strategically located in next wave cities and are leased out to operating solar plants. In addition to the land assets, CREIT also owns a 22.3 megawatt solar power plant, which is being leased out to its sponsor, CREC, who in turn operates the said solar plant and sells its electricity output to the government via a long-term feed-in tariff program. Post-offer, CREIT will acquire additional freehold land totaling to 333,877 square meters, which shall also be leased out to operating solar power plants, bringing the total aggregate capacity of its lessees to 145 megawatt. Typical to the REIT format are the Citicorp Fund Managers and Citicorp Property Managers Inc., both 100% owned by the sponsors. We will discuss more in detail the roles and the composition of these two entities further into the presentation. Next slide, please. Next slide. As mentioned, the CREIT asset portfolio will have a solar plant and 6 parcels of land that are all leased out to fully operational solar plant operators, thus ensuring a steady and recurring lease revenues. The lessees operate the solar plants and generate electricity sales from government and private customers and pay 95% of its power generation earnings to CREIT in the form of a guaranteed base annual lease. The table on the right details the guaranteed base annual lease from 2022 onwards. This is derived from projected generation output based on the plant capacity and irradiation. We compute this base annual lease rate from actual and historical past 5 years generation output revenue multiplied by tariff rate. The CREIT also stands to receive a variable rental from the lessees equivalent to 50% of the incremental gross revenues earned by the lessees from any excess of actual energy generation over its base revenues. This also captures the tariff upside in the renewal period of the underlying offtake contracts of the lessees. The next slide features, next slide please. Back up. Yeah. This slide features the details of the CREIT asset portfolio, including the 2 pipeline assets, Bulacan and South Cotabato, to be acquired post-IPO. You will note that the 6 land assets will all have long-term lease contracts, the earliest of which is set to expire by 2040, providing CREIT stable and recurring lease revenues from the solar operator lessees. I now turn you over to Joanne, who will discuss the key investment highlights for CREIT.
Thank you, Oliver, and a warm welcome to everyone attending this afternoon's CREIT briefing. We have summarized 8 key investment highlights for Citicorp Energy REIT. Next slide. I will discuss each in the succeeding slides. To start off, next slide, please. Citicorp Energy REIT, or CREIT, being the first energy REIT in the country, is a unique opportunity to invest in an entirely new REIT asset class, one with a green revenue portfolio. Next slide. CREIT's portfolio of 6 land assets and 1 solar plant are geographically spread over Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao in regions with high irradiation from 4.7 to 5.5 kilowatt hour per square meter per day, indicating a higher generation output. This is based on the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, or NREL's, irradiation study for the Philippines. Another significance of the location is its proximity to the national grid for an efficient energy dispatch. Its close proximity to metropolitan cities that have a steady demand for electricity enables cost savings on transmission line costs and as charged by NGCP. This cost savings may be captured as earnings premium, which may then be shared to CREIT. Next slide, please. Further dissecting CREIT's asset portfolio, you will find that out of the 6 land parcels, 3 are owned: Armenia, plus Bulacan, and South Cotabato upon acquisition post-IPO. The 3 other land parcels in the CREIT portfolio have long-term leasehold rights. These are Toledo, Silay, and Dalayap. The Clark property, which is included in the CREIT asset portfolio, has a long-term lease with Clark Development Corporation, and the plant is leased out to CREC as lessee, who then pays CREIT property lease payments in exchange for the use of the said plants. All of the 7 lessees have been operating solar plants since 2015 to 2016. 3 of the 7 lessees have locked in feed-in tariff contracts with the government, while the 4 other lessees have private blue-chip companies as their off-takers, providing a solid track record of clean and green sources of revenues. Next slide, please. The 7 lessees are forecasted to contribute 1.353 billion in lease revenues for 2022. Toledo property in Cebu contributes the largest at 27.3%, followed by Clark Solar Plant at 21.7% and Silay property in Negros Occidental at 20.8%. Bulacan and South Cotabato, both properties combined, will contribute 22.2% to total revenues upon acquisition post-IPO. As mentioned earlier, the lessees operate solar plants and generate electricity sales from either government or private customers and pay out 95% of its power generation earnings to CREIT in the form of a guaranteed base annual lease. This is derived from projected generation output based on the capacity and irradiation multiplied by the tariff rates. CREIT also stands to receive variable rental from the lessees equivalent to 50% of the incremental gross revenues by the lessees earned by the lessees from any excess of actual energy generation over its base revenues. This captures the tariff upside during the renewal period of the offtake contracts. Note that the guaranteed base annual leases are independent of the operating performance of the lessees, thereby giving revenue stability, while the variable lease components provide upside income potential for CREIT. The guaranteed base annual lease accounts for about 98.1% of the total lease revenues, while the variable component contributes 1.9%, providing a steady and recurring green revenue stream for the REIT. The lease contracts are likewise long-term at 25 years, with provisions for renewal for another 25 years. Note that 2 of the 4 leasehold land assets, Toledo and Dalayap, with CREIT as the lessor, has a right of first refusal on the property should it become available for sale. This highlights the security of the occupancy rates over a long period of time. And since the lessees occupy the entire property, there is limited to no vacancy risks as they need the entire area to keep their solar plant operational as part of their service contracts with the Department of Energy. Likewise, all the tenants have business disruption insurance that further protects the robustness of the cash flow should any untoward incident occur. Next slide. As CREIT's revenues are largely from stable and recurring leases, we expect distributable income to grow as a percentage of revenues. CREIT is forecasted to generate 1.094 billion in 2022 and 1.168 billion in 2023. This represents an increasing distributable income as a percentage of revenue from 40% in 2021, 81% in 2022, and 86% in 2023. The company shall be using adjusted funds from operations, or AFFO, as the basis of the payout ratio. This is computed as distributable income plus depreciation and amortization. Assuming an offer price of 2 pesos and 55 cents per firm share, estimated dividend yield is pegged at 7% in 2022 and 7.4% in 2023, based on a 100% AFFO payout ratio for both years. Moving on to the next slide, the second key investment highlight is Citicorp Group's synergies through the sponsor's committed support. Next slide. The sponsor, Citicorp Renewable Energy Corporation, is 100% owned by Citicorp Power, a diversified renewable energy development company engaged in solar, hydropower, water utility distribution, and biomass forest plantation. Citicorp Power is under Citicorp Holdings Investment Inc. or CHII, the same parent company of Megawide, a publicly listed and leading EPC airport and landport infrastructure company in the Philippines. With engineering, design, and construction in its DNA, CREC, a sponsor, is able to provide a robust pipeline of assets for CREIT. Next slide will show you a short company history. Citicorp Power was founded in 2015 and in 2016 completed the development and construction of 3 greenfield projects with a capacity of 103 megawatt DC. In 2018, Citicorp acquired 5 brownfield assets with a generation capacity of 60 megawatt DC. In February 2020, we signed a 1,200 megawatt DC framework agreement with AC Energy, paving the roadmap for Citicorp's race to its 1,500 megawatt project. So while it is relatively a young company, Citicorp Power currently ranks 3rd largest at 163 megawatt DC installed capacity, following AC Energy and Vina Energy. Next slide, please. This top market position is possible due to vertical synergies within the group. Citicorp is capable of end-to-end project development, whether greenfield or brownfield, starting from land acquisition strategy, strong knowledge of regulatory requirements from key stakeholders, engineering, design, procurement, and construction capabilities, and commissioning and operational excellence. This O&M expertise is possible with a cloud-based real-time performance monitoring system, the SCADA system, and a computerized maintenance management system, the CMMS, that allows its solar plants to have unparalleled 99% reliability over the past 3 years. Moving on to the next slide, the third investment highlight is that CREIT is well positioned to capture the robust outlook and growing demand for renewable energy. The Philippines, next slide please. The Philippines' economic outlook is expected to grow a high single-digit post-COVID. Compared to its regional peers, the Philippines trails its ASEAN neighbors in electricity consumption per capita, signifying electricity consumption growth opportunities at 6.5% CAGR. Next slide. To match the projected domestic peak demand forecast of the DOE, installed capacity for renewable energy is expected to grow at a CAGR of 16.1% from 2020 to 2030. Solar energy, which accounts for about 8,000 megawatts, is expected to grow 3 times by 2030. Looking at the WESM pricing and peak demand chart on the right, you will notice that the solar day peak starts at 7 to 11 a.m., following a second peak at 1 to 4 p.m. What is interesting to note is the emergence of a new evening peak, starting at 8 p.m., reaching price levels of the second daytime peak. This provides an opportunity for solar plant operators to invest in battery storage systems to service this emerging evening peak. In terms of installed capacity, this too has been growing double digits, 15.6% in Luzon, 41.5% in Visayas, and 16.7% in Mindanao. Note that CREIT's lessees are present in all these three main island groups. Next slide, please. The Philippine government has paved the way to encourage renewable energy companies to address the country's long-term energy requirements through fiscal policies and incentives, some of which include duty-free importation, tax credit, 7-year income tax holiday, zero-rated VAT transactions, and tax rebates. In addition to these attractive incentives, the government has further mandated a moratorium on coal projects as of last December 2020. And under the Renewable Portfolio Standards, it required all distribution utility companies to source a portion of their supply requirement from renewable energy sources to grow each year up to 35% in 2030. Next slide, please. To further deepen the collaborative policy environment, renewable energy companies enjoy priority grid connection, essentially ensuring that the solar power generated is not stranded and is immediately dispatched to the grid. The government previously offered a feed-in tariff program, which benefited fast-building solar operators like Citycore as they were able to lock in preferential power rates for a fixed period of 20 years. Note that 3 of the 7 CREIT lessees were able to secure feed-in tariff programs in 2015 to 2016. In addition, the government has recently rolled out its Green Energy Auction program, which essentially is the new version of the previous FIT program. And what this means is that the DOE will act as an off-take consolidator for renewable energy companies who have available or stranded capacity or those that have commenced building prospective capacity. The first round of the auction for 2,000 megawatts, including 1,000 megawatts allocated for solar energy producers, is scheduled for the first half of this year. The next slide, for the fourth key investment highlight, is the superior operational track record of CREIT and its tenants. Next slide. CREIT and its lessee plants have a design life of 30 years, extendable by another 25 years. If we look at the historical power outage caused by internal and external disruptions, you will find this trending downward since 2018. This may be attributed to the O&M expertise of the lessee and its real-time performance monitoring system, the SCADA system, and the computerized maintenance management system, the CMMS, that allows its solar plants to have unparalleled operational reliability. The O&M of the lessee solar plants are handled by the sponsor CREC. Experience and track record are key in ensuring that performance metrics such as availability ratio, which currently stands at 98.2%, and performance ratio, which currently stands at 83.3%, are the best in the industry. Next slide, please. Total solar power generation has grown a CAGR of 4.5% from 2017 to 2020. And in terms of market share, CREIT's lessees now account for about 17% of the total solar power generated. Moving on to the fifth investment highlight. CREIT is backed by secured long-term offtake agreements from reputable customers for all its tenants. CREIT's tenants have long-term offtake agreements with a diverse customer base. Next slide, please. Eliminating any heavy dependence on a particular industry or sector. 27% of the total contracted capacity of the lessees have long-term feed-in tariff rates with the government through the National Transmission Corporation or Transco. The rest of the CREIT lessees' capacity are contracted to various blue-chip and multinational companies such as AC Energy, Shell Energy, Freeport area of Bataan, and various industrial parks in the country. Looking at the 145 megawatt DC total installed capacity of CREIT and its lessees, 95% are contracted to to contestable customers, while the balance 5% are sold under priority dispatch on the WESM spot market. Next slide, please. As with any lease, it is important to look at the occupancy rates and vacancy rates. CREIT's occupancy rate will always be 100% over a long-term horizon, as each of the CREIT assets are leased out to a single tenant only, an operating solar power company, and is backed by a long-term lease agreement. CREIT, as a lessor of the 6 land properties and 1 solar plant, enjoys a superior 20.8 years weighted average lease expiry, or WALE, and this is the longest WALE among all the listed REITs in the market, which just ranges 5 to 7 years. Rising vacancies that have plagued both commercial shopping centers and office buildings are not evident in the CREIT leases, as these are occupied by solar plant operators and they have remained fully operational regardless of the level of quarantine that has been imposed. If we look at the lessee's customers' offtake contracts, you will see that their customers' WALE is at 7.3 years, still longer than the WALEs of the other REITs in the market. CREIT's lessee's contracts have a good balance between long-term, which provides stability, and short-term, which provides flexibility. 69% of the contracts are to be renewed beyond 2025, while only 16% of the contracts are for renewal this year. Majority of the tenants' customers for renewal on years 2022 to 2023 have been renewing customers of the lessees since 2017 and have already undergone 2 to 3 renewal cycles to date. The lessee likewise enjoys a right to match price privilege by virtue of its long-standing relationship with these customers. Even in the worst case of non-renewal, CREIT's tenants are able to sell their electricity output through the WESM, as they enjoy right of first dispatch, dispelling any stranded output and thereby protecting its revenue stream and its ability to pay its lease obligations. The next slide will show the 6th investment highlight, CREIT's experienced and agile professional management and leadership team. CREIT's management has a dynamic board and executive team with a vast experience in development of renewable energy. Our chairman, Edgar Saavedra, the founder of Megawide, has over 20 years of engineering excellence and plays a very active role in Citicorp's R&D. Oliver Tan, our president and CEO, led the successful IPO of Megawide in 2011 and has been responsible for pole vaulting Citicorp Power to its current market position. We are likewise supported by an experienced board of directors, including 4 independent directors. We have Topper Coronel, a seasoned banker. We have Attorney Jay Layug, a former Undersecretary of the Department of Energy, Ms. Chitwan, an agricultural advocate, and we also have Ms. Lizan Uichaco, an experienced investment management professional, as our 4 independent directors. Next slide. Our senior management team is complemented by young bright minds in the industry. Later on, you will meet Mia Cortez, our CFO, as she takes you through the financial highlights. Next slide. In compliance with the REIT law, we have established a fund management and property management company, both 100% owned by the sponsor CREC. The fund management company's role is to provide identification of asset growth opportunities as well as capital and risk management. The fund management fee is equivalent to 0.5% of the company's net operating revenues. Moving on to the property management company. The property management company is tasked to provide asset management in terms of maximizing plant operations output and ensuring that the lease contracts are enforced. The property management fee is equal to 1.5% of the company's net operating revenues, provided that the total of the property management fee and fund management fee shall not exceed 1% of the net asset value of the properties being managed. Next slide, please. The 7th investment highlight is CREIT's opportunity for growth through asset acquisition and operational optimization. Next slide. CREIT will be acquiring 2 pipeline assets, Bulacan property with a land area of 253,880 square meters and South Cotabato that has 7,997 square meters in land area. Both lands are occupied by fully functional solar power operating companies who are currently enjoying feed and tariff contracts with the government, therefore providing CREIT a green lease revenue stream over the next 25 years. Next slide, please. The sponsor, CREC, has rolled out its 5-year roadmap for 1,500 megawatt DC pipeline project. We zoom in on the detailed capacity buildup from the current level of 145 megawatt DC. In just 1 year, capacity will almost double with an infusion of 120.5 megawatt DC coming from the AFAB rooftop, 6.5 megawatts, and the Arayat Phase 1 and 2, 114 megawatts at the end of 2022. And again, almost doubling the capacity buildup in 2023 with the additional 195 megawatt DC coming from Batangas, A&B, and Zambales projects. The table on the right details the infusion of various projects, including rooftop PV systems, traditional solar farms, and a run-of-river hydropower plant into CREIT. And by 2025, we expect to have grown capacity to 779.5 megawatts, representing more than 5 times capacity growth from the current 145 megawatt DC. The eighth and final investment highlight is CREIT Sustainable Investing and Corporate Social Responsibility Initiatives. The Citicorp Group has pioneered the agro-solar concept in the country, where we find our solar farms coexisting with vegetable farming. This enables us to have the best uses of the land, wherein we properly plan the location of PV panels and plant various root crops and vegetables underneath the solar panels and alongside aisle axis. This provides income augmentation for community farmers where our solar land properties are located. This completes our 8 investment highlights for CREIT. I now turn you over to Ms. Mia Cortez, our CFO, for the financial highlights.
Thank you, Joanne. Happy to walk everyone through the financial highlights of CREIT. Next, please. CREIT's portfolio showed a strong pro forma financial position based on the assurance report of our auditor, PwC. Equity grew rapidly to 3.5 billion at the end of 2020 with a 3-year CAGR of 21% due to a stable operating performance. Meanwhile, liabilities contracted by 18% over a 3-year period due to payments of interest-bearing loans. As of the end of December 31, 2020, CREIT has minimal bank loans with a DE ratio of 0.08 times and has fully paid its bank loans in September 2021. This gives CREIT maximum flexibility given that it is unlevered. Having said that, post-offering, CREIT is able to take an additional loan of about 5 billion, representing 35% of the deposited property of CREIT, and said loan may be used to finance acquisition of any future asset injections to CREIT. Total assets stands at 4.6 billion in 2020 from 3.9 billion in 2017 due to the increase in current assets from 1.7 billion in 2017 to 2.8 billion in 2020, which is composed of cash, trade receivable, and some prepayments and other current assets. Non-current assets, which mainly relates to the Clark plant, leasehold, and freehold assets, all the said assets are under lease, decreased to 1.8 billion in 2020 due to depreciations and amortizations. Please note that these are pro forma numbers, which takes into account the financial statements of CREIT had lease costs been entered in 2016. Prior to the REIT formation transactions, CREIT used to operate the Clark Solar Plant under the feed-in tariff program with the government. Moving on to CREIT's operating performance. Next slide, please. Our revenues mainly relate to long-term lease contract from properties leased by solar plant operators, which offers yearly guaranteed base fees while enjoying 50% of the incremental revenue in the solar plant's operations, which is accounted as variable lease. This offers stable and predictable profit for CREIT. Total annual revenue is at 894 million, while 9 months revenue is at 670 million, following the straight line basis of accounting. Despite steady revenues, our net income grew by a CAGR of 7% to 551 million in 2020 and increased by 12% for the 9 months of 2021 compared with the same period of last year as a result of cost management initiatives over the years and the decrease in tax rate, which was enacted in 2020. CREIT's net income is expected to grow to 1.2 billion in 2022 once the company avails the tax incentive for REIT company and taking into account the growth in revenue upon the acquisition of Bulacan and Cotabato properties. This ends our presentation. We'll be happy to take in questions from the group. Thank you.
Ayan, ang dami ko sinabi, hindi pala ako wala pala akong ball. Alright, we have a lot of questions from the audience starting from the time that I think Sir Oliver was presenting. Yung ang dami mo nang sinabi, wala pala silang narinig. Okay, let's start off with the questions. First one. Yan. From Limuel Tatad. Does CREIT own the solar plants or it only rents it only rent it they have it rented they offer lease to to other solar companies, ayan, from them. Well,
Yeah. Can you hear me?
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So CREIT owns one solar plant. That's the 22.3 megawatt located in Clark. And the rest are all land asset leased out to solar plant operators.
Ayan, so
What CREIT owns is actually the land and the leasehold for the 7 other properties.
okay. Next, by the way, a while ago, while I was listening, with the for the benefit of the audience, I've heard the term greenfield and brownfield. Can you elaborate or explain or describe difference between the brownfield and the greenfield?
Yeah, so greenfield would essentially mean the three solar plants that we built from scratch back in 2015, while the rest are called brownfield because the company acquired this uh, when it is already operating back in 2017.
All right, thank you. So from Rain, may I ask the timeline for the potential asset infusion of 120 megawatts for 2022? Do we expect this to be assertive? By how much do you expect dividends per share to increase due to this asset infusion? Dami naman, Rain. All right.
Yeah,
All right. So first question,
so that's three
timeline.
questions. So yeah, first question. Uh, for the 120 megawatt, uh, the 6.5 megawatt rooftop has been completed last year, and the phase one for the Arayat, which is 72, will be energized this month. And then the phase two will immediately start construction and target to complete by end 2022. So all together, 120 megawatt will be ready to be infused either end 2022 or early 2023. Um, of course, this should be value accretive to the CREIT investors. With regards to your third question, um, we are not at liberty to
Accretive, sorry. Hindi ko
disclose.
masyado nabasa kanina.
Yeah, we are not at liberty to disclose what would be the expected dividend per share for this new asset acquisition. Obviously, this will be subject to a lot of steps. This will need to be valued by an independent appraiser. This will have to be approved by the fund manager and then by the CREIT board. So until we have the final price, it's very difficult to give numbers, but rest assured that this will be value accretive. Value accretive meaning this should result to higher dividend to the CREIT shareholder.
So that favors the those who would like to subscribe the series. Next question. How does the damage in Toledo affect dividend payments in the first few quarters?
Yeah, so the damage caused by Typhoon Odette last Christmas is very minimal actually. Just to give you some details, we will be replacing 2,000 panels out of
Mhm.
200,000 panels installed in our Toledo. So that's practically 1% or even less. We will be, we have already restored one of the six transformer that was affected as well, damaged by the typhoon. As we speak, we are fully operational. Though we are dispatching electricity not at full capacity yet, because the NGCP has yet to fully restore their transmission line. Nonetheless, our plant are covered with business interruption insurance. It covers up to 6 months of revenue losses. Hence, it should not affect 2022 dividend or 2022 earnings, hence the dividend.
Okay. All right. So next question from Lance Christian de la Cruz with ASEN, San Miguel, and other companies offering a very competitive rate when joining the CSP. I'm curious on your strategy on how to secure long-term contracts in the future.
Hmm. That's a very that's a very good question.
All
Um,
right.
we basically operate at a different market from that of San Miguel because they are base load. Our solar plant caters to day peak, so it's a peaking plant. Therefore, it's not apple to apple. Number two, we have been very competitive. In fact, our short duration contracts, which are being renewed every year, we've seen renewals on multiple cycles already. So we can price our tariff competitively mainly because of our ability to design a good energy solutions to our customers.
Ayan. Next question. From Facebook naman. Okay, next nito from Facebook naman na baka magtampo yung mga nasa Facebook. Seth Pangan. After the acquisition of Solar, Bulacan, and Cotabato, what's next and the timetable?
Yeah. So as mentioned, after Bulacan and Cotabato, the first batch would be the 120 megawatt, composed of the Arayat Mexico and the AFAB rooftop. The target is either end of the year or early next year.
Oh, yeah. Ayan, brief and precise. Seth, next question. From Facebook, JR Pusong, Gamo-Gamo. Dismiss na ba yung case ng owner na related sa M-Wide? Hindi po ito ba makaka-apekto o epekto sa City Core?
It's currently the case is currently with RTC in Lapu-Lapu. We believe in the legal system of our country, and we will let the legal due process run its course. Uh, it will not affect City Core from a business organization point of view because City Core is independent from Megawide. City Core is operating independently of Megawide. Um, if they're under a worst case scenario, the risk to City Core is what we call a key man risk. Key man because included in the respondents is the owner, Edgar Saavedra, and me. And since we provide strategic direction and vision to Citicorp, so it's a key man risk, but Citicorp has an independent organization, management team running the day-to-day operation of our solar plant. So worst scenario, Citicorp can hire a new CEO, can new set of board of directors. The company will still exist. The company will still run profit.
Operate. Ayan. So JR, don't be worried. It's a separate entity. It's actually good that you mentioned that, Sir Oliver. At least we have addressed the elephant in the room if that's one of them or kung siya yun. All right, next question. From Jordan Malyari, Paule, what is the difference between City Core to SPNEC and ASEN? This is for clarification only. Ayan, very inquisitive ang audience natin ngayon.
I would say the age of the management. Maybe no offense to Asian, they're very advanced in
Noted.
terms of skill and experience. Well, I would say the difference is, well, by City Core, if you mean City Core as a C-REIT, obviously it's different because it's a REIT company. Compared to SPNEC and ASEN, they are not a REIT company; they are your traditional corporation, right? If your question is City Core as City Core Power Generation Company, it's similar in a sense to SPNEC and ASEN because all of us are in the solar space, solar players.
And in fact, this is the very first REIT that caters to solar in terms of to renewable energy. Ayan. Next question from Rain. Ayan, kanina nagtanong siya. Thank you. Just a quick follow-up. May I ask how much is the capex per megawatt for CREC? And how much is the FIT rate per kilowatt for Clark, Bulacan, and South Cotabato projects?
Uh, Capex per megawatt for a brand new solar would range from 650 to $750,000 per megawatt. Obviously, depending on your location, on the site conditions, on your proximity to the tapping point to the grid. Okay. In terms of the FIT rate, the FIT, all our three plants qualify under the FIT round two being 8 pesos and 69 per kilowatt hour. And this comes with escalation as captured in the contract under the FIT. It's being escalated based on Forex and CPI inflation.
Okay. Next question. Sir, ang daming questions. You feel free to add, Joanne and Mia, if you want to share something about the question. From Mark Madarang, where will the proceeds of the secondary shares go?
Yeah, so I'll let Joanne, would you want to take this question?
Okay, you're on mute.
Sorry.
Ayan.
As part of the implementing rules and regulations of the REIT law, the secondary shares proceeds are supposed to be reinvested into the business or into assets that will generate equitable value for the REIT. No? So earlier, I presented a slide on, I think it was 10 projects that are currently in the pipeline. So part of the proceeds that we will be getting, the secondary shares that we will be getting will be used to fund the capex of these 10 projects, which are currently in varying stages of development.
All right.
Yeah, and not only the secondary proceeds will go to fund the future. Yeah, but also the primary share proceeds. So after acquisition of Bulacan and Cotabato, those two properties would have to dividend it up to its parent company, which is also the sponsor CREC. And those proceeds will also be used together with the secondary proceeds to be used for the reinvestment plan as stated in our REIT plan to construct about 650 megawatt DC of our pipeline project.
Next question. Uh, from Jerry Abalye, CREIT focus on solar energy only, or is it open to all types of renewable energy?
We're primarily, most of our assets are primarily solar power plant. However, we are open. In fact, we are already doing our studies, research and development with regards to other type of renewable energy, such as wind, uh, run-of-river hydro, and energy storage system.
Yeah. Keep the questions coming, guys. We still have room for more questions. I think they intentionally made the presentation brief so you can ask more questions. Okay, next, from young pensionados, please clear how CREIT works. People thinks they can gain dividend on power generation costs. So I think this was mentioned in the presentation, but I think they just want the layman's term, sir.
Layman's term is just like the other REITs in the market, the REITs will earn their income coming from lease payments. So it's consistent with being a real estate investment trust, right? So we're not operating the solar plants itself. It's the tenant of the land, of the 6 land parcels and the solar plant in Clark that is operating the plant. So sila yung nagge-generate ng electricity sales. So whatever they generate, yun yung binabambayad nila sa atin as rental payment.
I hope that's clear, young pensionados. That's why I think kanina minention nila the term whale or weighted, ano nga yun?
Weighted
Average lease
average lease
expiry.
expiry.
Yun.
Yes.
Alright. So, next question. And marami tayong natututunan today. Guys, next question from Facebook or, sige, from Romel Reyes, do you have any plans na mag-IPO din ang sponsor in the near future? Bakit REIT instead na mag-IPO na lang yung sponsor? I think
Yeah,
smaller.
so the management consider a lot of options and concluded that the REIT seems to be the best structure and a win-win for everybody, including the investors, because REIT will essentially give you the fixed income dividend play plus exposure to renewable energy, which is a sunshine rising sector, because this is basically an energy REIT, okay, unlike your traditional property REIT. So this also gives the investor the ability to participate in the net zero movement, in ESG. Whether we have plan in the future, we are always flexible. We're not closing doors. We are always flexible. Should there be a strong case, a compelling case to do an IPO?
Ayan, hindi pa naman tapos ang kwento, Romel. So, let's see the upcoming. I personally think this is very strategic knowing that we only have 5 REITs, 'di ba, in the Philippines, and this will be the 6th. Next question. Meron pa bang questions? From, I think earlier, si Manoy's Finest, I've seen that's the earliest question. What factors can bring your company's income down? So I think he's talking about risk. How do you plan on reacting to such factors in the future?
Yeah. Typical to a REIT company, you are leasing to your tenants, okay, as similar to your property REIT. So if your tenant, you need to understand what is the business of your tenants, what is their product, okay. In our case, our tenants are power generation company, solar plant operators. Their product is electricity, which is a basic essential. It will never run out of fashion. It is resilient to economic cyclicality, unlike tenants of the office or commercial REITs. Tenants come and go. So it basically, and how we structure our lease is the guaranteed base lease component is independent of the actual plant performance of our tenant. Therefore, you have that downside risk protection as well as upside participation via the variable rent, meaning if the lessee's uh, actual generation output for that particular period is higher than the base, and they were able to sell their electricity at a much higher rate, whatever is that incremental, the tenant will share 50% of that incremental to the RICO via the variable rent.
50%. Okay, so Manoy's Finest, now that, yeah, we have given you the how you'll differentiate the property REIT versus C-REIT. From Carl Cruz, if Zambales gets infused into C-REIT, should we expect both property and land lease as income streams for this asset, considering C-REIT would own the land and solar plant?
Yeah, I'm curious why of all the projects in the pipeline, Carl specifically asked about Sambales. Okay, but in
Maybe he's
general,
from there.
maybe he's from there. Okay, yeah, yeah. So in general, uh, we have the flexibility to fold in future asset, whether it's a land only or land plus the solar plant. Okay, so it will be approached as and when these are ready to be infused. Again, so we're flexible there. I think the overriding principle is that any future asset infusion should result to value accretive to the existing shareholder, which means higher dividend.
All right. I think it was mentioned because some projects that can be potentially infused into CREIT include land and solar plants, such as the Sambales project. Baka
Okay.
yun yun. Next question from Daddy Yo. Just want to commend the team for being straightforward to the questions, leaning a lot. Looking forward to this green energy REIT. Ayan. So, wala
Thank
daw
you.
sugar coating. Yeah, na-appreciate ni Daddy Yo. From Mark Madarang, can CREIT invest in office space or acquire assets aside from renewables? I think this is related to other renewables na minention kanina. Tama ba?
Yeah. So we are positioning, we intend CREIT to be an energy REIT. Therefore, it will only invest or acquire asset from renewable energy. Okay. So office space that's outside, we're basically an renewable energy REIT.
So, hindi
Ac-
lalabas doon.
Actually, add ko lang, China,
Sure.
that's what makes C-REIT unique in a sense, 'di ba? Kasi right now what's in the stock exchange are listed property REITs, no? Focused on office buildings, ganyan.
Mhm.
So they're all good in what they're doing, but I think we're making history here as the country's first energy REIT, no? And we'd like to be able to continue that attraction or that uniqueness. So at least people, when they invest in us in the series, they too are investing in a renewable future, diba? Renewable energy
Yeah,
future.
agree. It's good that you have that uniqueness in terms of all the REITs available in the market. Ayan. So, meron pa ba? Did we skip any? Ayan, okay. From La Tierraza, may dividend po ba for first quarter 2022?
Miss CFO, would you want to answer that?
Of course, there would be dividend and part of our REIT plan, even if we listed in 2022, we're declaring dividends or earnings coming from 2021 numbers. So that's good news for all those who would be buying
Wow.
series. So expect it
Wow.
within March or April after we have completed the audit of our 2021 numbers. And then
Ayan,
moving
excited na ang
forward,
mga nag-subscribe.
yeah, moving forward, we expect to declare dividends on a quarterly basis based on the guaranteed base lease, and then there would be a special dividends for the variable base lease, and that would be annually for the special.
Wow. This is actually it's getting more attractive, no? Especially if the preference is common stock preferred and REITs these days. Yeah. From Carlene Jing Katabay. Yeah, okay, natuwa siya. Wow, that is amazing. So natutuwa na sila. Baka dagdagan yung subscription mamaya after this live event. Next question. Ayan, maraming. Sabi ni Rain, all in daw siya. Okay, remember to diversify. Alright. So, wag masyadong matuwa, guys. Alright. So, a lot of people are liking the presentation. I think it is very optimistic of, straightforward and unique, which makes it more attractive. Any words to part the audience? These are beginner investors that would you like to share any parting words to them? Starting
Yeah.
from Miss Mia maybe to last will be then Joanne and then Oliver, Sir Oliver.
First of all, I'd like to thank everyone for joining and participating in this webinar. Uh, the CREIT is actually unique in a sense that this is the first energy REIT in the Philippines. So I hope that you support us in this venture because this is good for you because of the predictability in terms of the revenue. It's good for the country because by sharing this, you'll be helping us to plan our roadmap in building the 1.5 gigawatt project of solar plants. So this will uh, this will somehow mitigate the need for energy demand that is upcoming in 2030. And lastly, it's good for the environment because this is clean energy. We are only building solar plants for a energy project.
Ayan, futuristic, future-proof project, ika nga. Miss Joanne?
Thank you, Mia and Sheena. Just to like maybe just a clear takeaway. The City Core Energy REIT is really something that has a pipeline of projects moving forward. No, we like the sector that we are in. The tenants are engaged in power generation, and that is really an essential sector when you think about it. Dumating yung pandemic, pero hindi tayo pwedeng nag-work from home tayo, pero sumisip-sip pa din tayo ng electricity, di ba? So, unlike probably yung vacancy risk that we've seen in office buildings, no, we've seen medyo umalis yung mga POGOs or nag-downsize yung mga offices and the BPOs. They've adjusted their work schedules. But our tenants are solar operating companies that need to use the entire land. So it's always a 100% occupancy. Year round for the next 25 years. So it gives you a sense of expected returns, guaranteed returns for through the dividends that we're giving out. No, bonus na lang din yung variable lease rental na share natin with our investors. No, so I think those are my key takeaways. You're assured of a very good and regular dividend stream. And second is there is a clear pipeline of projects that will enhance the value or the future value of the stock. Thank you.
All right. So I think people are so positive also because recently they have made money from SPNEC. I think now that parang nare-relate nila doon. I think yan, sabi ni Pardeep Gurn ba? Can't wait for the IPO. I'm so excited. Ayan. So last but not the least, Sir Oliver.
Yeah. Firstly, thank you, China and Abacus, for inviting us for hosting this webinar, and to all the participants in this call. We are more than happy to share the story and our business model. Probably as a key takeaway, if you look at the listed REITs in the PSE, no, most of the REITs, of course, there are exemptions, but most of the listed REITs has outperformed the index. Okay, so you would note that the market has already embraced these REIT products. Okay, what we're offering is a diversification of the available REIT products in the market. Diversification because we are not your traditional property REITs, because we are the first energy REIT, and our differentiation, as Joanne mentioned, and we will overly emphasize, is that we have stable occupancy rate, unlike the traditional REITs, which are inherently exposed to vacancy risk because tenants come and go. Okay, we enjoy stable occupancy rate all year round. The product of our tenants, power being essential, Therefore, you are assured of the lease income. Hence, the dividend. You should expect the dividend from CREIT. And then, in terms of capital appreciation, in terms of growth, you can see it. We have a long and visible runway for growth with the robust 1.5 gigawatt pipeline projects of the sponsor. In terms of capability to implement these pipeline projects, the sponsor has demonstrated its solid track record. We are already on our 6th or 7th year. We have demonstrated that we can build greenfield projects from scratch. We can leverage on the engineering expertise of our sister company, Megawide, being the largest construction company. We know how to design efficient solar plant. We are operating and maintaining our own solar plant. So we don't outsource. We understand the business from A to Z. That should give you confidence that your management knows the business in and out. With that, maraming salamat po. Thank you.
Simple lang si sir, no? Pero ang galing na salesman eh. Alright, thank you so much. And I hope to see you and good luck to your IPO. Ayan. And there you have it, guys. I hope that you I've personally learned a lot today because it's the first time I'm hearing about a company, a REIT company. Alam naman natin na 'di ba, what we are aware of are the property REITs, and this should bring us more parang more advanced in terms of our knowledge in investing with REITs. Tandaan, REITs are not for trading. This is for dividend plays. This is for na, pangalawa na lang yung price appreciation dito. All right? And thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed and learned today's What Investors Needs to Know About CREIT. Guys, sorry, I need to go back for the announcement. Nako. All right. So CREIT will be available through LSI subscription until Feb 7. We are gonna pay on your behalf. So please go ahead and check the emails that we sent. I think that was yesterday. This is, let me see. All right. So it's under CREIT LSI, CREIT IPO LSI Feb 7, 2022, 12 noon. So make sure that to fund your subscription, if you want to add more through LSI, please, you can check that link so we'll be the one to pay on your behalf. And also some plugs that I forgot to mention. I'm really sorry here. Let me see. Okay, if you want to open an account with MyTrade, download the MyTrade app on Google Play and then on in the App Store, and you can go also to https://start.mytrade.com.ph and register. If you want to go to our website, you can go to mytrade.com.ph and see some of the promos that we have there. If you want some reading materials, guides, once you are subscribed to our once you have a MyTrade account, you'll be able to have access to exclusive Facebook groups such as MyTrade Map, wherein you can ask our analysts we just in the Facebook group, and they will be answering you within the day. And last but not the least, if you are a newbie, try and check our MyTrade Affordable Retirement Guide. The starting is just 5,000 pesos. And once you subscribe, you will be receiving a monthly playlist for you to start investing. That's it for today. And again, thank you for watching What Investors Need to Know.